I'm 60, that's between 11 and 16 years. You stand idle at this intersection and do nothing. Guilt and shame. I will carry this around forever. When you're experiencing fear right now, it means you are enough. You've always been enough. You will always be enough.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic.
You don't need courage if you don't feel fear. This is one of my favorite quotes that I heard from Maria Shriver many years back during a women's conference here in Los Angeles. And in this episode today, we are going to address some of the things that I feel are very related: courage, fear, imposter syndrome, and making sure that you at all times understand that. And how do you kind of like reconcile all these things in a world where many want to give up or give in? It's too complicated, it's to this or to that. So let's talk about it. I believe that the amount of self-loathing that I've seen in the last couple of months is extraordinary and a little bit scary for me, because I've been doing the work. I've been looking at people, and I think people are so beautiful. And it's very difficult to understand why so many of you cannot see your own value, what you're bringing to the world, your light, finding your purpose, stepping into that, making your impact, living on purpose, attracting people that are meant to be in your life, your partners, expressing love, receiving love, and ultimately become very successful in what you do. So there's so many factors that go into it. So let me start with a couple of observations. Number one, most of us have an area of our life figured out. You may be super fit, you may have your weight under control, or you may be on the other side, you don't. You may have your relationship figured out and you have your person, but your financial success isn't there. Or you may have extraordinary financial success, and I work with a number of high net worth people where I see this, but they either have a tough time in their relationships or finding a partner, or if they have had an exit, to figure out what is the purpose and their meaning without all of this. So I'm going to address these before we dive into the topic a little bit deeper. Your experience here is a journey. And this journey takes you through this entire step of figuring out what you're here to learn, step by step by step by step. That's why everybody's journey is different. And you don't want to judge anybody else's journey because they are on their path and you are on your path. So because you figured out one thing does not mean that you figured out all the other things, nor does success mean to have it figured out in all different areas of your life. That is not correct. And if you do that, then happiness is something that you're going to continue to push off in the future further and further out. There was a recent episode I did with Mark Collins, and he had said something very important that I think is important to point out. And if you've not heard this episode, go there and listen to it too. Understand what that really means. He says that if your self-worth and your sense of identity is defined by an outcome, like success, by an external factor on how much money you have in the bank, what car you drive, or the size of your body, or anything else external, you will never get there, because the outside reflects your inside. So the inside has to be fixed first for you to then have the outside reflect what's really beautiful on the inside. And if that doesn't make your head spin 25,000 times, then I don't know what. Because when I heard that, I was like, okay, let me just like try to figure this out and break it down step by step by step. Okay. There are things, as I said, that are easy for you. that are difficult for others. So everybody has the bag of weight that they carry around. When you now say, I want to be really successful, I want to step into my purpose, I want to make a bigger impact, I want to feel like I'm enough, I want to feel that I understand what my place in this world is, I want to find my person, I want to build my life, and I want to be happy in every area of my life. That is a tall order. I've turned 60. Still definitely having a bit of a challenge with how kind of old that makes me, or how I feel this idea of time suddenly is like flashing in my eyes. How much time do I reasonably have left? If the average life expectancy is somewhere between like 71 and 76 years, I'm 60. That's between 11 and 16 years that the average person has left from this point on out. Man, my clock is ticking. So when I look at this from this perspective and I say, what's really the midlife? The midlife really is 35. If you go by the average life expectancy, somewhere around that. So your clock is ticking. You can look at it any way you want. So the first thing we're going to always ask ourselves, and I encourage you to do this, is what is it that you want? What is actually important to you? I had a client in Budapest, and she is, I mean, she's beautiful, intelligent. I mean, she's amazing, and she has big, lofty goals. And when we were working together and I asked her this question, she said to me, if I'm really honest, I read your book, Happy Woman, Happy World. And what I really want is I want to find my significant other and I want to have a family. That's my number one goal. And she cried when she said that because she felt that it was almost like betraying all this other external success that she was trying to achieve, to say, I'm building up all this momentum, but now I realize that I don't want to be by myself. I want to have somebody in my life to share it with them. And it made her very upset. But she followed her heart and she followed that notion that she was going to find her mate. And she found an amazing man. They're now living together. They're a power couple. I mean, she got exactly what she wanted. And now her inside is reflecting what she wants. And now we can focus back upon some of these more external things because that was her priority. So I encourage you to think about, for this upcoming year, what is really your priority? Because you cannot have 16 priorities. If I'm going into an organization and I do a strategic plan, and sometimes they tell me they have, 20 different strategic objectives and priorities, that's just never going to happen. You cannot have that much. I, in my work, recommend one priority per 90 days. We do 90-day sprints. So maybe that's an idea for you to follow. So if you try to have too many priorities or try to achieve too much, you will never be enough because you will never be able to achieve all of it. Because life doesn't happen simultaneously on all levels, but consequentially. So you have one thing and then you move to the next thing and then you move to another thing. We have a video editor who is editing this video by the name of Alexandra, or we call him Sasha. And Sasha had to make a very difficult decision on whether he wanted to live or have his life in danger, because Sasha comes from the Ukraine. And when he made the decision that this needed to come first, before money, before success, before he could build up his career, before he could find a partner, before he could do anything, he needed to be in a place that was safe. So that took priority over everything. Now, when I put it in that context, it's probably very obvious to you that, well, of course he had to make this his priority, but you need to have it this obvious about anything in life. It doesn't necessarily have to be life or death. In his case, it was. In yours, it does not have to be. And please don't let it come to that point, ideally. So now that this is out of the way, another thing kind of can happen. The piece about being enough oftentimes is related to our childhood trauma, is when somebody wasn't paying attention, when your inner child experienced something that was dangerous, frightening, PTSD, crazy mother, like in my case, or a dad that took off, or somebody who hit you, abuse of any kind. Whatever your story is, There is not one person in my life that I don't know that didn't have to overcome something of some extent. So, in that sense, you are unique, but you're not special because it's everybody's story, at least everybody that I know. The good news about this is, and here is where we often go astray, that if you have had significant trauma, I can tell you this with absolute certainty, you're here for a purpose. You're here to make an impact in the world. That's people that are listening to this podcast, that people who are sharing our information. Those are people I work with. Typically everybody I work with has some sort of story of some magnitude, and they had to overcome this to help more people to also overcome their things. Those are the healers, the transformational coaches, consultants, the conscious leaders. Because if you had a princess or a prince story and then somebody crowns you a king or a queen and you have no adversity in your life, there's nothing to overcome. There's very little to teach because it's not your own experience. So know that this notion of enough isn't that you want to continue that story that was given to you back in the old days when somebody did this to you. But the is you are enough now because you overcame that and now you can help more people. That was a turning point in my life where I had to overcome this aspect of the neglect and the abuse, the physical, the verbal, the psychological, just warfare in my childhood. But I look at it now and I don't have an emotion to it. So I feel for the child that went through this, but I am no longer this child. I'm an adult. I have moved way beyond that. And I can look at it now and say, what happened to the child is absolutely horrible. And I will do my best to help as many leaders as I possibly can for them to be in a different space so they don't do that to their children, or that they can help people that are experiencing this. So this is the transformation of enough that I want to encourage you to really look into, to say, you may have felt like you were not enough back then because somebody did something to you, but you are enough now because you overcame it and because you are here to help other people to have a better life, to be more joyful and find more happiness. So now that's the inside job. So let's talk about fear and courage, which comes as a result of it. Now, if I give my inner child all the power, I make decisions as a 7-year-old. And one of the podcasts that you could really look into where we talk about this is a podcast that we did on finance, and where I was asked, am I making decisions as a child that was 7-year-old with my first money mindset, or am I making decisions as an adult right now when it comes to money? That hit me right between my eyes because I recognized that because my first experience with money was so terrible, because I was caught stealing 25 cent out of my mother's wallet in the kitchen because I wanted to buy, as a child, candy after church. And everybody else did it, and I didn't because I didn't have any money, because I didn't get an allowance, and my mother thought that I didn't need anything. And when you listen to the episode, I'll share this in more detail. But boy, I mean, of course, if my experience is shame and guilt, then I will carry this around forever until I'm conscious about it and I can let it go. So there may be fear now, fear that's associated with how I look at certain things, because I'm like, wow, there's guilt and shame. And what if I get caught? This relates to the not feeling enough because there's always conditions. If I would have been a better child, then I would not have been abused. Then I would have had a parent that would have been a better parent. And then, therefore, it's all my fault. And how can I not carry this for the rest of my life? And I bet that to some variation, you may carry some of this. It may not be as traumatic. It may be a lot worse. Whatever it is, let's just not judge it. Let's just look at it for what it is. It is the thing that brought you here. Now, fear, when you're experiencing fear right now, it means that you've probably been activated and you've been called to lead. And you don't feel fear if you don't need courage, which is what I said in my introduction, in my quote from Maria Shriver, is that if I get up, I do my thing, I watch TV, I make myself dinner, I go to bed, I work out. What's there to be fearful about? Nothing. But if I say I want to reach 1 million people, I want to take everything I've created, and believe me, I can relate to this so much right now because I'm really being called to now look at my legacy and take everything that I've created for 20 years, all these programs and these courses and the workbooks and the spreadsheets and the how to be a career coach, a business coach, and make it available to everybody. That's what I've been called for. This is what I've been told I need to be doing next. And I'm like, this is like ridiculous. I mean, I've been doing the work with smaller groups and one on one, and now suddenly you want me to vomit all of this outside in the world. So, of course, there's fear. It's fear I don't know how to do it. I mean, I kind of do and I kind of don't. I feel called for it. I know this is the purpose I'm stepping into. I've been receiving many, many, many downloads as I am embarking at the time of this recording on another spiritual journey. But I don't have the steps. I don't know what it means. I don't know how much money it's going to cost me. I'm going to have to hire more people. Of course, I have fear. Every time you get to that next level, you will feel fear. That's when you need courage. And that's when you hire people like me. That's when you hire other people, coaches, consultants, anybody you have resonance with. That's when you listen to mindset. That's when you do the meditation. That's when you go on the inside, because the fear is a reflection of something that is triggered. And now you are at the intersection of a crossroad, like you're T-boning into another road. And there is no other option than left or right. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised, just stand idle at this intersection and do nothing. And that's where people often are stuck. That's the worst, especially if it's not a decision, especially if it's just made out of, well, let's just be realistic about it. I know how to do it. I don't have the money to do it. I have to live in the meantime. You show, if that's going on in your head, there's no trust, there's no surrender, there's no belief system that what you're here to do is yours to have. You are trying to base a future outcome on a knowledge that you have at this time, which brought you to this point. So unless you do something different and you allow new knowledge to come in, you just cannot go to another point. That's when you need courage. And courage is something where people oftentimes say it's easier to have courage if you have no alternative. Like, this has to work and you're going to make it work. People sometimes say that people have a hard time mustering up courage, especially people with money, because they don't really have to, whereas somebody with no money has to make it work. So wherever you are on that, just be cognizant of that and step into it. The spirituality meets strategy, right? So the reason I changed this podcast to include spirituality, that's now almost a year ago, and combine spirituality and strategy, is because I have really recognized that I got so tired of the chasing, so tired of the chasing, of the knocking on the doors. I felt sometimes like I was begging, and it is nauseating. It's just icky and yucky. And you go like, well, I know I'm good, but you don't really truly believe it. Like you kind of know, and people have good results, but you still doubting that what you have to go. It's like all day long. It's like, enough of this already. You got to do the work. You got to do the inside work. You got to do the spiritual work. And then when you are in a position and you say, I truly, truly believe that I'm called. I truly, truly believe I'm activated. I'm truly, truly believing that I'm here to help you to take your message out in the world. And now I'm called to give you the materials to do so. I don't have a choice. You want to be at a point where you don't have a choice, where if you don't follow this call, because this call is so strong, you need to follow this call at all costs. Now you need trust. Trust that God, spirit, universe, spirituality, whatever you want to call, whatever you believe in, you can believe in any religion, but your conviction of stepping into your purpose has so unbelievably strong. It has to be this strong for you to actually step into action, because believe me, it is much easier to go home and find something on Netflix and then or whatever, any other streamer, and just watch it and be entertained for 4 or 5 hours. I could have taken these 4 or 5 hours and really done something with it, but sometimes I just need my brain to go on a walk and take off. That's avoidance. So my message for you is that we're going to have a tough year ahead of us. Whatever side you're standing on, whatever side you believe in, on whether you're screaming victoriously we won or whether you're devastated, we all are going to have a tough time ahead of us. My call on November 10th, when I woke up after this election, was loud and clear. You need to lead. And that's my call to action for you. The middle is wide open. The pendulum is swinging so insanely from left to right. I mean, I don't even need to repeat any of this nonsense. I can't even listen to it anymore. You're called to lead. Build leadership from the middle. Find a message that has no friction. Draw people to you that share your message. And if it's one person, start with one and then find your second. And if you have 100, find 1,000. But there is a mass activation. I've never in my life, and I've been doing this for a long time, well, maybe not, once before, I've seen this, a very similar situation with, that was, during the Reagan era when a lot of these programs were challenged and there was such a massive shift in how we connected with each other and what happened as a result of it. And I see a lot of these same signs right now. And instead of buying into the volatility, I want you to buy into leadership and into self-sufficiency and into courage and stepping out and taking what you're here to say and say it. Not political. It's not worth it. Nobody's going to ask you who you voted for in 2024 or 2020 or who will be voting for in 2028. Just forget all of that. Do an inside job and find out who you are and how you want to lead and what you're being called to do. Shut off the distractions. Stay off social media as much as you possibly can. It's so bad right now that no normal person would talk to somebody like that. So let's not do that. So my message for this year, for 2025, is loud and clear. You are enough. You are enough. So go do what you came here to do. And if you need help, you know where to find me. Reach out, DM me, send me a message. We're having a bunch of programs that are going to come out. We are running Turn Your Talent into Business now a couple times a year. We started Forum, which is for you if you have an existing business and you kind of know what you need to do, but you need the accountability and you need a group of people that are cheering you on. Small groups, reach out if you want any information. We also put them in the show notes. And then at some point, I will be starting to launch the programs on where I make my materials available so that if you are a career coach, a business coach, if you want to know how to service your clients better and you're interested in finding out, reach out. We'll be happy to put you on a wait list when it becomes available. I'm no different than you. I also have fears. I also have trepidations, but I've been called to lead, and so I will lead. I love you. I thank you for being here. You are enough, and until next time, and goodbye.
So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.